That would be really cool.
Kelp's all organic and not GMO or whatever, so there's some great marketing stuff that's beyond me that he does it. Ooh, that's all.
Nick got on.
Oh, okay.
So we're gonna talk to Nick first, and then I think we can move on to the next part, or whatever. How do I pin? Okay. All right, so next, we have Nick Mangini from Kodiak Island Sustainable Seaweed Kiss. Nick has been in the game longer than anybody. Kelp farming. So 2015, I want to say, was when you started your farm, Nick, or
2016. Can you guys all hear me?
2016? Yep, we can hear you.
Cool.
Tell us more about it.
Okay. Sorry, I don't have a PowerPoint or anything ready. I'm in Anchorage. We had a Swamp Sea conference, and I was attending the Iditarod ceremonial start and kind of got stuck on the wrong side of town. So my apologies there. Hopefully that model set that I sent over was helpful for some people to see a little bit of, better idea rather than seeing something in the water. It helped me with education purposes to explain people, exactly what a kelp farm looks like, so they understand there's some structural integrity and there are proven methods that we're using to do those things. So,
we haven't actually looked at it yet. If you
cool.
want to give a brief overview of it, because we're probably going to mess with it after this.
Oh, okay. Yeah, it's just it's a model that I tried to make to scale. I kind of did a little write-up for you, so you can kind of share that with them maybe. That I sent your email, but much like when you make a kelp farm, when you measure things by the foot, it's really important to have all of those measurements as close to, if not exactly the same measurements, because 6 inches or 5 inches may not seem like a lot, but over a 400-foot span, it allows grow lines to cross over each other, especially when you're trying to do grow lines that are close together. So that's one thing that I really wanted to try to hammer home, that's probably the most important part of building a kelp farm, especially if you're going to do anything inside of like 10-foot spacing between your lines. And this is all not vertical lines or parallel lines. So I know that I think the last person, I don't know who that was, but who was presenting, but I think, are they doing vertical lines? Yeah, NVE. Cool. Yeah, I'll be really interested to see if your guys' kelp comes back too, because
Me too.
we couldn't get it to do that for us, but they said there was like a 56-degree breaking point that they don't have. They never come over that in the Faroes, so they've seen when it did get above that in the past that they couldn't get any return kelp. Our problem was that if we leave it out there through the fall, especially September, we get so much mussel recruitment that it would be impossible to do any kind of food grade. So, and mostly what I'm doing is food grade. So I appreciate that you're not even on that track, because I think that that's important. We need to be growing a lot of biomass and having some people with realistic expectations of, what we're going to get per pound. I think that's a real important aspect of this. So anyways, I'll give you a little overview on my farm. That model is a very small, set. So that I think I did 15 lines with 10-foot spacing. It's not perfect. I found that centimeters and tying knots doesn't work very good. So I messed with it for like a day in my kitchen and got frustrated with just like not being able to get it perfect. I needed to change some of the connections and stuff, and I just plain ran out of time. But it's pretty useful as an education thing. So we started my site in 2016. I think I was the second kelp farm permitted behind Trevor, Sandy, and Catch Can. And of the 3 that grew and harvested in 2017, I think I'm the only one still doing it commercially anyways. So we started off with three 1,500-foot lines. I just put in a 1 acre permit. I used crab pots and corks that were given to me and line that I got from the dump, and tried to see if there was like an end of life aspect of this, which I kind of found pretty quickly that to do it to scale, you don't want to have old line out there. So that was my angle in the beginning. It grew pretty well. I had like 10,000 pounds in my first year on the 3 lines between sugar, kelp, and alaria. Um, the next year I put in a permit or an amendment and grew to 17 acres. We did 33,000 feet the second year um, of seed line, and they gave us the option to grow sugar or alaria, and the price point for alaria was twice that of sugar. And as many of you will probably learn, sugar is a pain in the butt to harvest. The holdfast likes to break loose from the line. It's really hard to get onto boats. There's just a lot of complications that you don't have with alaria, at least in my experience. Now, that being said, if you get a site that's more exposed to weather, your holdfast will probably be stronger. I don't have that option. I'm kind of stuck where I am. Um, I have like a mile of fetch from, that's about as far as the wind can build. So I don't get big waves. I get a lot of real big wind events. Like 2 days ago, I think it blew 80 across my site, and I haven't been back, but I'm confident that it's okay. So the second year we did 33,000 feet. We used cement anchors, which again is another thing that I would try to stay away from. They're just, unless you're using some rebar or something that helps them grab better. As the biomass built, the current actually drug one whole side of my farm on top of itself. It was kind of a big mess the first year, or the first real year, I guess. The third year, I was introduced to this ARPA-E program that I'm still hosting. This is my last year. We did a no-cost extension, and the idea behind that was a $2.5 million grant. We worked with Woods Hole, Yukon, a number of people from the East and the West Coast, scientists, engineers, developed this catenary system. We used their Ocean 10 anchors. I believe he came to Kodiak, so some of you might have met him, Cliff Gowdy. His spar buoys. I don't think that it's necessarily friendly to small boats as far as a harvest or deployment goes. It's the idea in the beginning was to try to develop a farm that we could set way offshore. Somehow that evolved into how densely can we plant this, and then it also turned into what substrates of line can we use, and floating versus neutral buoyancy, and all of those kinds of things. So the project itself took many different turns, and they're testing some seeding new seeding techniques and things like that this year that'll be interesting to learn from. So as that evolved, we started at 10,000 feet, went to 24,000 feet. Last year, we did 55,000 feet of seed string. And coincidentally, it was actually like my worst year in 3 years. We outplanted when it was very, very cold and lost a bunch of our seed, unfortunately, as we were seeding. So it was very uneven growth throughout the site. And this year, we stepped back to about 35,000 feet. We did 2.8 foot spacing on one side of the farm, on 55 grow lines, 200-foot wide set that's 400 feet long. I have every 100 feet, I have a set line going perpendicular to the way that the grow lines are, so that the entire set moves together with the tide and the wind. We tried to do no set lines and found that we had lots of tangles, and then again with sugar kelp, you just start to lose it. So that's kind of what we're doing in Kodiak. I was blessed with the ability to have a market from the beginning because I was one of the first people, and I kind of did my research and happened to be fishing in the Bay Area and talked to Blue Evolution, and um, they have continued to buy my kelp. I haven't been able to grow as much as I could. Um, I have a 17-acre site, and I utilize about 4.8 acres on top of the water. So that's just two catenaries. I've got quite a bit of room to grow. So in the end, I'd like to have 4 catenary sets with maybe some oysters on top of it. Just because I think that oysters in the short term will be more economic, or I'll be able to actually realize some profit from them. If I didn't have the grants that I have on my site, it would be pretty hard to focus just on kelp. So outside of that, I'm also working for Swampsea now, which is Southwest Alaska Municipal Conference, as their mariculture director, and will be trying to help not just communities within Southwest. I really have a passion for the education and the social licensing part of this. I think that if we don't get started on the right foot with all of the other potential users and user groups of these areas, that we don't stand a chance to grow this industry like we want to. And so getting correctly built farms and education out there to communities so people understand what we're doing and when we're doing it, and when we need to have these things out of the water so we're not impeding on other people's uses, is pretty important to me. So that's what I got.
Anybody have any questions? Can you just give a little comment about how you picked your site? Because I know you have a site that's very accessible from town, but may not be ideal for other reasons.
Okay. Yeah. I, well, originally when I started this, my brother-in-law had started to write the application. So he had picked a place kind of right on Kodiak Island between the airport and town. I don't know if anybody's, familiar with Kodiak or not, but I was a little bit worried about how exposed that was. And I was also nervous about there's a lot of subsistence fishing that happens in that area with gill nets, especially. There's a river that has red salmon. So I took his overall plan and put it behind an island. It's kind of tucked away. There's not really much use there because there's a big reef that comes out that parallels the island. And then where a shortcut through would be right there, it's really reefy and very shallow. Like a couple people go through there in little boats, but mostly because it was outside of the norm of places that people go. There's not really much reason to go to that island because it's so thick you can barely walk through it. There's only one little beach that's accessible. The float planes take off and land right there, but mostly I wanted to be able to view it from land fairly close. So that's kind of what led me to where I'm at. I got kind of lucky, I guess. Again, I just kind of just went for it, and it worked out.
Happens sometimes.
Yeah.
Nothing from anybody else?
Thank you,
Everybody's,
Nick. Really cool to
Yep.
hear your story.
Yeah.
yeah,
Thank you.
thanks a lot
And
for chiming in.
yeah, and I just say stick at it. It's not easy. It's getting better. And if anyone in your region or or even outside of your region, anyone that you want um, Alicia has my information, and I'd be more than happy to, at least try to help in any way that I can. So